Welcome to Wisdom of the Bible channel. In ancient Canaan, there lived a couple whose names would be remembered for generations. Isaac, the son of the revered patriarch Abraham, and his wife Rebekah longed for a child. Over the years, their hope for an heir seemed to fade. They refused to give up. Isaac prayed intensely to the Lord, asking for a miracle. And then, the impossible came to pass. Rebekah became pregnant, but her happiness quickly changed to worry. She sensed strange movements in her womb, as though a struggle was happening within her. Confused and uneasy, she sought help from the Lord. The Lord replied to her prayer with a startling message. "Two nations are in your womb. Two peoples will separate from your body. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." These words, deep and mysterious, would shape not only her family's future, but that of entire nations. At last, the moment of birth arrived. The excitement was strong, and those near Rebekah waited nervously. To their surprise, the birth brought not just one child, but two, twins. The first child arrived with a reddish appearance and was covered in hair, as if wrapped in a furry coat. They called him Esau, meaning hairy. Shortly after, the second baby emerged, clutching his brother's heel. They named him Jacob, meaning he who grasps the heel, or supplanter. From the start, it was evident these brothers were opposites. Esau, the eldest, became a talented hunter, a man who roamed the fields. Esau was sturdy, energetic, and bold, always chasing outdoor excitement. His hair-covered body gave him a distinct and rugged look. Jacob, in contrast, was a calm man who preferred the calmer routines of life at home. Jacob was clever, thoughtful, and skilled in matters of trade and planning. While Esau roamed the woods hunting, Jacob remained in the family camp, studying the customs of their people and the art of commerce. Their contrasts went beyond hobbies and attitudes. Their parents' affection also differed. Isaac, drawn to Esau's vigor and bravery, favored his firstborn. The earthy smell Esau carried after his hunts, along with the flavor of the wild game he cooked, delighted the aging father. Rebekah, however, felt a special affection for Jacob, drawn to his gentle manner and steady presence. Many years later, a prophet named Malachi would utter striking words about them. "I loved Jacob, but I hated Esau." Though jarring, these words were not about personal loathing, but rather indicated a divine choice tied to God's wider purpose for humanity. It was a statement beyond their individual traits, hinting at the part each would play in their nation's story. Esau, as the oldest, held major rights and duties. In that era, the oldest son would receive most of the father's wealth, as well as the patriarchal blessing, a spiritual heritage passed through generations. This blessing involved God's promises, including what Abraham was told, that all nations would be blessed through his offspring. Yet fate had unexpected turns prepared for these twins. The prophecy shared with Rebekah before the twins' birth, that the elder would serve the younger, started to play out in surprising ways. Esau's decisions, his rash nature, and his disregard for the sacred worth of his birthright would steer the course of what was to come. As time went on, the contrast between Esau and Jacob grew more obvious. Esau shone as a brave hunter, ready to confront the wild with boldness and expertise. His strikingly hairy form was familiar to everyone, and many respected his power and ability. He was driven by the moment, giving little thought to future matters or spiritual depth. Jacob, on the other hand, developed a sharp mind and clever strategies. He closely studied those around him, picking up on social subtleties and commercial insights. Always thinking ahead, he planned and prepared for what lay beyond the horizon. Though he lacked Esau's striking physical presence, Jacob had a deep resolve and tenacity that helped him flourish under tough conditions. Meanwhile, the family's dynamics were intricate. Isaac, older now and nearly blind, took solace in Esau's hearty presence and relished the wild meat he provided. To Isaac, Esau embodied the sturdy continuation of their lineage, fit to confront a harsh world. Rebekah, however, believed Jacob possessed the traits needed to guide God's people. She sensed in him a mindful spirit and keen wit that, she felt, made him better suited to inherit Abraham's heritage. Though not openly stated, the parents' partiality was clear to the twins. Esau, secure in his birthright and Isaac's fondness, went about life with little thought for tomorrow. Meanwhile, Jacob, ever mindful of his second-place standing, yearned to alter his fate. Their tale urges us to consider the tangled nature of family ties, the burden of expectations, and the wide impact of our decisions. Since birth, Esau and Jacob had walked distinct paths, heading toward a clash that would extend far beyond themselves. While Esau roamed Canaan's plains, oblivious to the forces at work, Jacob watched and devised his next move. All was in place for one of the most pivotal events in their saga, a turning point that would reshape their lives and the destiny of their lineage. The sun blazed across Canaan, its heat dancing over the dry fields. In this harsh setting, a new part of Esau and Jacob's gripping story began to unfold. The morning started as usual, yet it would soon mark a turning point for two unborn nations. Esau, the adept hunter, left at first light, carrying his bow and arrow-filled quiver, and wandered into rugged territory seeking prey. Time went by, the sun climbed overhead, and the scorching heat grew worse. Although Esau normally had good luck on the hunt, this day was different. Creatures appeared to vanish, hiding from the sun in secret dens and unreachable hollows. At the same time, Jacob stayed within the tents, busy with his usual chores. Ever observant, Jacob would glance toward the horizon now and then, as if anticipating Esau's arrival. A certain unease filled the camp, hinting at an approaching event of importance. Time dragged on, and the sun dipped lower in the west. Suddenly, a weary silhouette showed up in the distance. Esau, completely worn out and starving after his failed expedition. His frame, normally strong and lively, appeared weak and drained. Both hunger and thirst had reduced him to near collapse. The scent of a meal drifted through the camp, making Esau's stomach clench with need. His tired gaze locked onto a steaming pot by the flames, brimming with a lentil stew Jacob was cooking. "Brother," Esau rasped, his throat parched. "Please give me some of that red stew. I'm starving, about to faint." His plea was broken by his labored breathing, showing how weak he truly was. Jacob, who had been observing him, did not reply at once. He sized Esau up with sharp eyes, silently taking in his brother's dire state. For a few moments, only the stew's simmer and Esau's heavy breathing broke the silence. Then Jacob finally spoke, measuring his words. "Of course, my brother, but first, sell me your birthright." This suggestion, at first outrageous, hovered between them. The birthright was holy, a privilege and duty handed down from the father to the oldest son. It provided not only twice the inheritance, but also headship of the family, and above all, the spiritual blessing tied to God's vows to Abraham. Weakened by hunger and fatigue, Esau did not fully sense the gravity of Jacob's request. He answered impulsively and without pause, "Look, I'm about to die of hunger. What good is the birthright to me?" Sensing his chance, Jacob pushed further. "Swear to me right now." And in a single moment of frailty that would be remembered through time, Esau gave his word, trading his birthright for a meal. The deal was set. Jacob handed Esau some bread and the lentil stew. The older brother devoured it, quenching his hunger and thirst, yet giving up an invaluable heritage in return. After eating, and once his desperate hunger faded, Esau rose and walked away, as if unmoved by his own actions. This act, which seemed small, was actually a huge turning point. The brief conversation that happened there would echo for centuries, influencing the fate of many peoples. Esau's choice spoke volumes about who he was, a person focused on the here and now, led by urgent desires. Overcome by hunger and weariness, he gave little thought to the sacred and cultural worth of what he traded away. His decision to swap his birthright for food showed a short-sighted outlook and a disregard for his spiritual inheritance. Meanwhile, Jacob came across as strategic and opportunistic. He understood the birthright's importance and took advantage of Esau's brief weakness to seize it. Though his move was morally doubtful, it showed he deeply valued spiritual promises and had a relentless drive to secure his fate. In the days ahead, the tension between them lingered unspoken. Once Esau felt better, he seemed to dismiss the entire ordeal. He carried on hunting as usual, almost as if the agreement never happened. Jacob, however, guarded his newly acquired status, biding his time before openly embracing what he believed now belonged to him. Word of their exchange soon reached the rest of the household. Rebecca heard the story with surprise, and maybe some quiet relief. In her eyes, Jacob had long been the better choice to inherit the family's calling. Isaac, meanwhile, stayed unaware of these developments, his poor vision stopping him from noticing the shifts in his son's relationship. This episode poses deep questions about what we hold dear. Which things do we truly treasure? How quickly would we sacrifice our legacy, be it worldly or sacred, for an instant payoff? The account of Esau and Jacob challenges us to weigh our own decisions and principles. It also shows how tiny choices can create enormous ripples. Esau's hasty move shaped his own future and changed the fate of his descendants. Often we cannot see the gravity of our decisions until much later, when their effects become clear. The selling of the birthright also brings up the balance between destiny and choice. Rebekah's earlier prophecy, that the elder would serve the younger, was now playing out. Yet we wonder how much Esau and Jacob's deeds were fated, and how much they came from their own free will. In the following days, the effect of their pact gradually became evident. Holding the birthright gave Jacob newfound self-assurance. He engaged more in family affairs, seeing himself ready to assume the leadership he believed was now his. Esau carried on much the same, giving little sign of regret for the deal he had struck. Yet the groundwork for discord was laid. The quiet strain between them was now steadily intensifying. Before long, this pressure would break out in ways neither brother could have predicted. The tale of Esau and Jacob, especially this chapter on the birthright, still captivates readers and thinkers throughout the ages. It goes beyond its ancient setting, providing enduring teachings on family bonds, decisions made, their outcomes, and the fine line between fate and autonomy. When night fell on Isaac's encampment, no one foresaw the full impact of that day's events. The path was clear for even more stirring moments that would affect both the brothers and countless generations. Many years had gone by since Esau traded his birthright for a simple meal. Life under Isaac's roof appeared routine, but unseen forces were at work, preparing for one of the most pivotal and intense episodes in this family's story. Isaac, the family head, had grown very old. His once keen vision had faded, rendering him almost blind. Sensing the burden of his years, he realized it was time to confer the patriarchal blessing, a deeply meaningful ritual in their tradition. One peaceful day, Isaac summoned Esau, his eldest and most beloved son. Though his voice had lost some strength with age, it still held the command of a leader. "My son," he said, "I am old and do not know the day of my death. Now take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt something for me. Prepare a tasty meal the way I like it, and bring it to me to eat so that I may bless you before I die." Esau, keen to make his father proud, left at once. He had barely disappeared from earshot when someone else stepped forward. Rebekah, Isaac's wife and the twins' mother. She had caught every word of their talk, and her heart beat quickly, stirred by the critical moment. Not pausing, Rebekah hurried to Jacob, her cherished son. "Listen," she said in a low voice. "I heard your father tell Esau to bring him game and prepare a tasty meal so that he may bless him in the presence of the Lord before he dies. Now, my son, pay close attention and follow my instructions. Go to the flock and bring me 2 of the best young goats. I will fix a meal for your father just how he likes it. Then you'll present it to him, so he can bless you before he dies." Jacob, ever cautious, saw the dangers at once. "But my mother," he protested, "my brother Esau is hairy, and my skin is smooth. If my father touches me, he'll see the trick and curse me instead of blessing me." Undeterred, Rebekah said firmly, "My son, let the curse be on me. Do as I say and bring the goats." And so, a careful ruse took shape. Rebekah quickly cooked the dish just as Isaac preferred. Next, she put Esau's finest garments on Jacob. For the final touch, she placed goatskins on Jacob's hands and neck, giving them Esau's rough feel. With his heart pounding, Jacob walked into his father's tent, meal in hand. "My father," he said, doing his best to sound like Esau. Isaac, startled by how soon he had returned, said, "Who are you, my son?" Jacob replied, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat of my game so that you may bless me." Still unsure, Isaac asked him to come closer so he could feel him. His aged hands brushed against Jacob's arms, noticing the coarse goat hair. "The voice is Jacob's," he whispered, "but the hands are Esau's." Still puzzled, Isaac asked again, "Are you really my son Esau?" "I am," Jacob lied, his pulse pounding in his ears. At last persuaded, or too tired to question further, Isaac asked for the meal. He ate and drank the wine Jacob offered. Then he beckoned his son near and kissed him. Catching the aroma of Esau's clothing, Isaac's lingering suspicions faded. Speaking gravely, the elder declared his blessing. "Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you of the dew of heaven and of the fatness of the earth plenty of grain and wine. Let people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you." Those powerful and promising words resonated in the tent. Jacob, shaking from the gravity of it all and from his own deceit, barely comprehended his victory. The blessing intended for Esau was now his. Jacob had scarcely gone when Esau came back from his hunting trip. Excited by what he'd caught and eager for his blessing, he cooked the food and took it to Isaac. "My father," Esau called as he entered, "please sit up and eat from my game so you can bless me." Startled and upset, Isaac said, "Who are you?" "I am your son Esau," the hunter replied. "Your firstborn, Esau." In that instant, Isaac grasped the truth. He shook uncontrollably, realizing he had been tricked. "Who then," he asked, "came with the game and served it to me? I finished it before you arrived and gave him the blessing, and indeed he will be blessed." At these words, Esau cried out in despair, "Bless me also, my father." Isaac answered sadly, "Your brother came and misled me, taking your blessing." Rage and grief rose in Esau. "No wonder they call him Jacob," he said. "He has cheated me twice, first my birthright, now my blessing." Looking at his father in desperation, Esau asked, "Have you not saved a blessing for me?" Isaac's reply must have struck him deeply. "I have made him lord over you, giving him all your kin as servants, along with grain and new wine. What is there left for you, my son?" But Esau persisted. "Have you no blessing left for me, father? Bless me as well." And he wept with anguish. Driven by Esau's tears, Isaac did speak words over him, though they felt more like a curse. "Your home shall be away from earth's bounty and from heaven's dew. You will survive by the sword and serve your brother, but when you rebel, you will break free from his control." Those words rang in the tent, fixing the fate of both sons and their future peoples. Jacob's trick had succeeded. He now possessed the sacred family blessing. Yet the price for this deception would be steep, far beyond what Jacob expected. Esau's heart burned with rage. "My father will pass away soon," he mused, "and then I will kill my brother Jacob." Upon hearing Esau's intent, Rebekah promptly moved to shield the son she loved most. She told Jacob to run to her brother Laban in Haran. "Remain there for a time," she said, "until your brother's anger subsides." So Jacob left, parting from his home and the turmoil he had caused. He had won the blessing he craved, but at a heavy price. His path now led him far away, where he would encounter hardships that would push his faith and determination to their limits. Meanwhile, Esau stayed behind, seething with resentment and bent on recovering what he felt was his birthright. The gap between them, once minor, was now a deep canyon. Their tale of deceit and fallout challenges us to think about our own deeds and decisions. How many times do we let short-term urges cloud the bigger picture? How ready are we to risk our principles to meet our aims? The brothers, once so closely linked, had now taken starkly different roads. As Jacob journeyed far away, Esau stayed in Canaan, where new events awaited him, set to impact both his life and that of a new people. The once confident outdoorsman and hunter now stood at a decisive point. The blow of losing the blessing and the split with his twin shaped a vacancy in his heart, one he would try to fill through different means in the years ahead. When he reached 40, a key age in that society, Esau made a choice that brought deep sadness to Isaac and Rebekah. He married two Hittite women, Judith, daughter of Beri, and Basemath, daughter of Elon. This step displeased his parents, since the Hittites were outsiders with ways and beliefs far from the heritage Isaac and Rebekah held dear. The scriptures say these wives were a source of bitterness to Isaac and Rebekah, Genesis 26:35. Beneath those brief words lay a profound family grief. For the parents, Esau's marriages went beyond unwelcome ties to a foreign tribe. It signified a shift away from God's covenant with Abraham, diluting the special line meant to hold the divine blessing. One can sense the unrest this caused in Isaac's household. To Rebekah, who preferred Jacob, Esau's unions likely confirmed her belief that Jacob was better suited to uphold the family calling. As for Isaac, he likely felt torn. He clearly adored Esau, yet his son's choices clashed with all Isaac had grown up believing. The Hittite women brought not just different traditions and faiths, but also a fresh set of tensions into the family circle. Once, the patriarch's camp was grounded in the ways and worship of the God of Abraham. Now it struggled against outside influences. Such a culture shock likely sparked ongoing friction, yet Esau appeared unaware of how serious his decisions were. Or maybe, hurt and bitter at losing the blessing, he intentionally drifted from his family's customs. Either way, his choices molded not just his destiny, but also that of his whole line. Time went on, and existence carried forward. Esau formed his own household apart from Isaac and Rebekah. He stayed strong as a hunter and outdoorsman, earning local esteem with his abilities. His children came along, growing up with both his background and the Hittite ways of their mothers. Eventually, Esau heard startling news. Jacob, gone so long, was on his way back to Canaan. He wasn't returning alone, but brought wives, children, and notable riches. Such tidings surely reopened Esau's old scars. The sibling who had tricked him, stolen his blessing, and driven him away was coming back in success. During this key moment, Esau took another major step in his marital life. Aware of how unhappy his parents were with the Hittite wives, he chose to marry a third time. This time, it was a purposeful move. Esau approached Ishmael, Isaac's half-brother, and wed Mahalath, Ishmael's daughter, and Nebaioth's sister. This wasn't a casual decision. By taking a bride from Abraham's line, Esau seemed to be reaffirming his link to the family's heritage. It was like saying, "I belong here," sharing Abraham's lineage too. His third marriage speaks volumes about his nature and ongoing conflict. Although he had drifted from his family's ways, part of him still craved their approval. Maybe marrying Mahalath was his attempt to ease their dismay and reclaim his spot in Abraham's family line. Yet Esau's fate was already unfolding. His earlier decisions, along with Jacob's blessing, guided him and his offspring away from the land of promise. In due course, Esau and his household settled in the highlands of Seir, south of Canaan. The move was more than just a change of location. By choosing Seir, Esau distanced himself from the chosen line and started a new nation. There he flourished, his family grew, and they rose to power. Known as the Edomites, they would later hold an important place in Israel's story. Genesis 36 details Esau's lineage, showing just how large and influential it became. His offspring included tribal heads, monarchs, and notable figures. Called Edom, their territory flourished, growing into a formidable realm. It is striking how Isaac's words for Esau came to pass. "Your dwelling will be away from the richness of the earth, away from the dew of the heavens above. You will live by the sword and serve your brother. But when you become restless, you will break his yoke from your neck." In the rugged hills of Seir, the Edomites truly dwelled far from fertile ground. They turned into a fighting nation, surviving by force. Even though they occasionally fell under Israel's sway, they often rose up and cast off that rule. Esau's marital choices and his lineage give us much to ponder. One point is how our personal decisions, especially in marriage, can echo across time, shaping our own paths and those of our descendants. We also confront the tangled web of family ties. Esau's early marriages grieved his parents, and his later bid to fix matters with a new wife reveals the strain that emerges when personal choices clash with familial hopes. Also, his tale reveals how belonging and personal identity are pivotal to our lives. His unions display a conflict between wanting freedom and yearning for his heritage. The rise of the Edomites from Esau's line demonstrates how one person's deeds can ripple through entire nations. What started as a feud between siblings evolved into a multi-generational saga of two peoples. Finally, Esau's tale invites us to think about what it means to be blessed or cursed. Even though he didn't receive Isaac's chief benediction, Esau still flourished and founded a strong nation. This raises the question, What truly is a blessing? Can we discover fulfillment even when life veers off course? As events unfold, it's clear that Esau's tale doesn't conclude with his own life. His people, the Edomites, kept influencing Israel's story, at times opposing them, at times cooperating, mirroring the complicated bond of their founding twins. Esau's voyage from cherished eldest son to ancestor of another realm highlights the impact of decisions, outcomes, and potential redemption. Through his unions and offspring, Esau forged a fresh road, diverging from his original fate, yet no less meaningful. His life shows us that setbacks and altered plans can still yield enduring achievements. Many years slipped by after the brothers parted ways, each pursuing his own journey. Esau was living in the rugged heights of Seir, where he had established his household. Meanwhile, Jacob spent 20 years in another land, toiling for his uncle Laban. At last, they neared a reunion, heavy with worry. As Jacob journeyed back to Canaan with his family and belongings, he dispatched servants to let Esau know he was coming. When they returned with word that Esau was heading his way, backed by 400 men, Jacob was terrified. He recalled his brother's old threat of retaliation. The night before they met, Jacob split his group and sent offerings to soften Esau. Then he experienced his well-known struggle with the angel, wrestling until daylight. From that contest, Jacob emerged as Israel, bearing a changed viewpoint. At last, the day of their meeting dawned. Spotting Esau drawing near with his followers, Jacob, dreading the worst, bowed 7 times before him. Yet to Jacob's astonishment and great relief, Esau hurried over, hugged him, kissed him, and they wept together. This scene of reunion stands as one of Scripture's most moving. The very brother who once vowed to end Jacob's life now greeted him with love. Separation and years had cooled his wrath, letting brotherly care triumph. When Esau inquired about Jacob's gifts, Jacob answered, "To find favor in your eyes, my lord." In a kind gesture, Esau replied, "I have enough, my brother. Keep what is yours." Their words show how far they both had come. Jacob, the former trickster, took a lowly stance before Esau. Meanwhile, Esau, who had once treated his birthright so carelessly, now exhibited a surprising generosity and stability. Even after this tender reunion, they did not dwell together. Esau returned to Seir, and Jacob stayed in Canaan. Their physical split mirrored the distinct routes they and their offspring would follow. Esau's influence continued well past his lifetime. The Edomites, his lineage, formed a strong nation. Their region, Edom, had mineral wealth and key trade paths, flourishing for a long time. Still, Edom's ties with Israel, stemming from Esau and Jacob, frequently turned hostile. At certain points, Israel ruled over Edom, echoing Isaac's prophecy that Esau would serve his brother. Other times, Edom cast off Israel's grip, claiming its freedom once more. A fascinating angle of Esau's story is how later Jewish and Christian thought depicts him. Jacob is hailed as Israel's father, ancestor of the 12 tribes, while Esau is usually cast in a harsh light as one who scorned his birthright. Yet a deeper study of Scripture shows a more nuanced picture of Esau. He's portrayed as hot-headed and rash at times, but also able to show grace and kindness. The way he made peace with Jacob speaks to a certain dignity that is often ignored. Esau's story prompts us to consider timeless topics, the importance of both physical and spiritual legacies, the intricacies of family ties, the chance for mending even profound hurts, and how our actions affect both our own path and those who come after us. His tale also shows us that records of the past are frequently shaped by those who triumph. Though Scripture centers on Jacob's line, Edom's might and success imply that Esau's journey, though separate, was still important. In the end, Esau's life stands as proof of how intricate our human stories can be. It teaches us that one moment or decision doesn't sum up an entire life. Rather, our actions and bonds collectively shape our story. His reunion with Jacob in particular shows that even the fiercest family rifts can be mended. Through the ages, Esau's narrative still urges us to reflect on our own decisions, connections, and the mark we leave behind.